the moment you lose yourself. There comes a moment in life, a silent, invisible moment, when you realize you've been living for everyone but yourself. It doesn't come with fireworks or drama. It comes in the quiet, when you're brushing your teeth at night, staring at a reflection you barely recognize. When a smile you give strangers feels lighter than paper, and your soul feels heavier than stone. When you wake up and your first thought isn't about what you want, but about what they need, what they expect, and what you must do to keep the world spinning for everyone else. Have you ever felt that? That sudden, sinking ache that whispers, "This isn't my life anymore." Carl Jung once said that the greatest tragedy is not death. It's reaching the end of your life without ever having truly met yourself. And maybe that's where you are right now. You've been playing the role, wearing the mask, performing the script that society handed you. The good son, the responsible daughter, the dependable friend, the loyal employee, the one who never says no. And while you've been busy keeping everyone else's world intact, yours has been quietly unraveling. We live in a world that celebrates self-sacrifice but neglects self-connection. From the moment you wake up, your phone lights up with demands. Emails, deadlines, chores, bills, an endless list that has nothing to do with your soul's joy. And so, without even realizing it, you send a silent message to yourself every single day. You come last. But here's the truth Jung wanted us to face, and it's a hard one. Every time you abandon yourself, you become a stranger to your own soul. Every time you silence your needs, your dreams, your truth, you're telling that quiet inner voice that it's not important, that it can wait. And over time, that voice stops speaking. That's how you lose yourself. Not in one catastrophic moment, but in 1,000 small acts of self-betrayal. Smiling when you want to cry. Saying yes when you're dying to say no. Staying where your soul is screaming to leave. Jung understood something most people run from. The unconscious, that deep, hidden part of you, is not optional. It's not a hobby, not a weekend retreat, not a side project. It is you. Ignore it long enough, and it will fight back with anxiety, with restlessness, with a feeling that no matter how perfect your life looks, something is missing. You've felt it before, haven't you? That vague, haunting sense that you were meant for something different, maybe even more. That ache in your chest that appears when you think about the life you once dreamed of. That quiet dissatisfaction that no job title, no relationship, no new purchase can cure. That's your soul knocking. Not politely, but desperately. The problem? We're taught to silence it. We call it being practical, realistic, or responsible. We tell ourselves it's just a phase. We bury it under Netflix and endless scrolling. But the ache doesn't go away, because it's not just discomfort, it's truth. And truth is relentless. So here's my question for you, and I want you to feel this, not just answer it. When was the last time you made a decision purely for yourself? Not for your partner, not for your boss, not for your parents or your kids or your image. For you. If the answer feels distant, if you can't remember the last time, then this isn't just another video. This is your wake-up call. Because in the sections ahead, we're not just going to talk about self-love as some vague, feel-good concept. We're going to dismantle the lies that keep you living someone else's life. We're going to face the fear of choosing yourself. And by the time we're done, you'll understand exactly why Jung believed that meeting yourself, fully, unapologetically, is the single most important journey you will ever take. And it starts here, right now, with you. The prison you don't see. You think you're free. But freedom isn't just the absence of chains. It's the presence of choice. And most people, they've forgotten they even have one. You wake up and follow the script, the one that was written for you long before you could speak. Go to school. Get the job. Keep your head down. Make the right friends. Choose a path that makes sense, that pleases the people who raised you, the people who pay you, the people who watch you. They tell you it's safety. They tell you it's stability. They tell you this is what a good life looks like. But deep down, you know it's a cage. Not a cage made of steel. A cage made of expectations, of shoulds and musts, and that's just the way it is. Carl Jung saw this long before the world was drowning in screens and scrolling. He warned us that the greatest psychological danger is losing touch with our own inner voice. Because once you lose it, you start living their life, not yours. And the more you conform, the more invisible you become. To them, yes, but worst of all, to yourself. Maybe your cage looks like a job that drains you, but you stay because it pays the bills. Maybe it's a relationship where you've stopped being yourself just to keep the peace. Maybe it's the endless performance of pretending you're fine when you're not. And here's the cruelest part. The world will reward you for it. They'll call you reliable. They'll call you successful. They'll call you admirable. Meanwhile, your soul is starving. You'll feel it in small ways first. The heaviness in your chest when Sunday night rolls in. The hollow smile at gatherings where everyone's talking, but no one's really saying anything. The secret envy you feel when you see someone living boldly, and the whisper inside that says, "Why not me?" We tell ourselves that one day we'll make the change. One day when it's less risky. One day when the kids are grown. One day when there's more money, more time, more courage. But one day is the most dangerous lie we ever believe. Because one day turns into never. And if you're not careful, you'll wake up 20 years from now with a resume full of achievements, a house full of things, and a heart full of regret. Jung's truth was simple but brutal. If you don't make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. Meaning, if you don't listen to yourself now, you'll still end up somewhere. But it won't be where you were meant to be. And that's the kind of loss no amount of success can hide. The invisible prison is real. And it's not guarded by anyone else. It's guarded by the part of you that's afraid. Afraid of what they'll think. Afraid of failing. Afraid of standing alone. But here's the secret. The door has never been locked. You can walk out at any time. And when you do, the air tastes different. The colors look brighter. Your own name feels like a song instead of a weight. But walking out takes something most people avoid their whole lives. The willingness to disappoint others before you disappoint yourself. And that is where freedom begins. The whisper you've been ignoring. It's always there. That soft, persistent murmur deep in your chest. You've heard it in the quiet moments, in the shower, on a long drive, just before sleep. It's the part of you that remembers who you really are. The part that hasn't forgotten your first dreams, your wild ideas, your unfiltered joy. But somewhere along the way, you learned to ignore it. Not because you wanted to, but because the world taught you it was safer. That whisper says, leave the job, write the book, take the trip, say no, say yes, speak the truth. But every time it rises, you smother it with reasons. I can't right now. It's not practical. What will they think? Carl Jung understood that the unconscious, this inner voice, is not weak. It's relentless. It will try to guide you back to your authentic path again and again. But when you ignore it long enough, it doesn't just disappear. It starts to leak out in other ways. In restlessness you can't explain. In irritation that flares at the smallest things. In sudden sadness when nothing is wrong. In the numbness that creeps into your mornings. That's not random. That's your soul banging on the door. But we're taught to label it as stress, burnout, or just life. We pop pills, binge shows, scroll endlessly, anything to avoid the conversation with ourselves. Because that conversation demands honesty. And honesty demands change. Here's the truth no one tells you. The whisper will not go away. It will wait years if it has to. It will watch you go through relationships, jobs, and milestones that look perfect from the outside, all the while knowing you are miles away from where you're meant to be. It's patient, but it's not gentle forever. Ignore it long enough and it will raise its voice. Through a breakdown, through a crisis, through a moment that shatters the life you thought you had under control. Some call it bad luck. Jung would call it an intervention from a soul. That's why the bravest thing you can do isn't quitting your job or moving across the world. The bravest thing you can do is listen. Really listen. Not just when it's convenient. Not just when it agrees with what you already want. But when it scares you. When it asks for something big. When it asks you to become someone you've never been before. That whisper is your compass. And every time you follow it, even in the smallest way, you begin to align with something far bigger than comfort. You align with truth. It could be as simple as saying no to the thing you've been doing out of guilt, or finally signing up for the class you've been putting off for years, or having that conversation you've avoided because you know it will change everything. The whisper doesn't care how big the step is. It cares that you take it, because the moment you do, something shifts. The world won't suddenly become easy, but it will feel lighter. Colors will sharpen. Your energy will rise. Opportunities will appear where there was once only routine. You'll realize the whisper was never asking you to destroy your life. It was asking you to save it. And once you start listening, you'll never be able to go back to pretending you didn't hear it. Meeting the shadow, the parts you hide, the power you need. There's a reason change feels impossible even when you want it with your whole heart. It isn't because you're weak. It isn't because you're broken. It's because you're trying to build a new life while refusing to meet the parts of you that keep pulling you back to the old one. Carl Jung called it the shadow. Everything you've pushed away, judged, denied, or buried because somewhere along the line you were taught it wasn't acceptable. Your anger, your envy, your cravings, your tenderness. You need to be seen. Your wildness, your grief. You learn to survive by hiding them. To be loved, you learn to perform. To be safe, you learn to shrink. To belong, you learn to betray yourself, just a little at a time. But the shadow does not disappear because you ignore it. It waits. And when you try to change your life without acknowledging it, it shows up as self-sabotage. The text you send when you promised yourself you wouldn't, the job you accept when you swore you were done, the habit you return to because comfort feels easier than truth. It shows up as perfectionism, procrastination, people-pleasing, elegant disguises for one simple fear. If I'm fully myself, will I still be loved? Jung's invitation is radical. Do not kill the shadow. Integrate it. Because inside what you judge lives the exact strength you need. Your anger is the boundary you were never taught to set. Your envy? It is a map pointing to what you secretly desire. Your fear? It is the guardian at the gate of your next life, asking, "Are you sure?" Your grief? It is love with nowhere to go, asking to be honored so you can move. Most of us were trained to be good instead of being whole. We edit ourselves in real time. Softer voice, smaller opinion, safer choice. We apologize for taking up space. We apologize for needing rest. We apologize for saying no. And the worst part? We call it kindness. But kindness that demands your silence is not kindness. Love that requires your disappearance is not love. Peace that depends on your denial is not peace. So how do you begin to meet the shadow without being swallowed by it? First, consent to see. Pick one place in your life where you feel the tightest. The relationship, the role, the promise, the mask. Ask, what am I afraid will happen if I tell the truth here? Let the answer be ugly. Let it be raw. Let it be honest. Second, translate symptom into message. When you numb out, what feeling were you trying not to feel? When you explode, what boundary was crossed for the 10th time? When you disappear, what part you needed to be held? Third, practice micro-honesty. You don't have to burn your life down to become yourself. You can begin with 10 seconds of truth. I don't have the capacity for that. I need time to think. This doesn't feel aligned. My answer is no. 10 seconds of truth, repeated, rebuilds a life. Fourth, bless the bridge, not the wall. Boundaries are not punishments. They are bridges, a way to cross from resentment to respect, from guessing to clarity, from performance to presence. Say what you mean without heat or apology. People who can't meet you, there will fall away. That is not a failure. That is alignment doing its sacred work. And yes, the grief will come, because choosing yourself has a cost. The identities you outgrow, the rooms you no longer fit in, the stories you can't tell anymore. You will mourn the version of you who survived by making everyone comfortable. You will mourn the time you spent living on mute. Let the grief move through you. Tears are not evidence that you're wrong. They are proof that you're healing. Darkness is not the enemy here. What you call darkness is often potential, unlived, unfelt, unexpressed life. Jung didn't ask you to become light by pretending the dark wasn't there. He asked you to become luminous by bringing a candle into the cave and learning its shape. So bring the candle. Sit with the part of you that is furious you stayed too long. Sit with the part of you that is terrified of being abandoned if you stop rescuing everyone. Sit with the part of you that still believes love must be earned by effort and pain. Hold their hands. Tell them, I won't leave you again. Mean it. From here, practical change becomes possible. Not because you bullied yourself into a new routine, but because you befriended the parts that were blocking the door. You will notice small revolutions. The text you don't send, the task you don't take, the meeting you leave on time, the nap you allow without calling it laziness, the meal you savor without earning it, the mirror you meet without flinching. You will notice language shift from apology to ownership. I choose instead of I have to. I prefer instead of whatever you want. My boundary is instead of I'm sorry, it's just that. And then something tender and holy, self-trust. Not the kind that shouts, the kind that hums beneath everything, quiet and certain. I will not abandon myself. People will feel it before you explain it. Some will lean closer. Some will step back. Let both happen. The life that aligns with your truth can arrive while you are busy convincing the past to understand you. Remember, integrating the shadow is not a weekend project. It is practice, not performance. You will forget and remember and forget again. You will set a boundary and then soften it and then set it again. You will say yes when you meant no and learn more in one mistake than in a month of perfection. This is not failure. This is becoming. If you need a place to start, begin with this vow. Speak it out loud if you can. I choose to know myself more than I need to be liked. I choose to tell the truth even when my voice shakes. I choose to keep my heart open without abandoning my boundaries. I choose to become whole, not good. Because here is the paradox Jung gave us. The more of yourself you welcome, the selfish, the scared, the fierce, the tender, the more trustworthy, loving, and free you become. Wholeness is not the opposite of love. Wholeness is the soil where love finally grows roots. So if you've been waiting for permission, let this be it. Go to the door you've avoided. Turn the handle. Bring the candle. Meet the part of you that has been waiting in the dark for years. When you take their hand, you don't just rescue a piece of your past. You recover the power that will write your future. You're not too late. You're right on time. And the path forward is lit from within. The courage to stand alone. There's a moment no one warns you about. The moment you finally choose yourself and the room goes quiet. Not because they're cheering, not because they're booing, but because they're watching and deciding. When you first begin to honor your truth, it won't look graceful. It won't look inspirational. It will look disruptive. People who once found you predictable will find you unsettling. People who counted on you to always say yes will hear you say no for the first time, and they won't know where to put it. Carl Jung knew this. Every authentic choice has a cost, and the first payment is often loneliness. You see, when you've spent years shaping yourself to fit the molds of others, breaking those molds feels like betrayal, not just to them, but to the version of you they've grown comfortable with. They love the you who kept the peace. They love the you who showed up no matter what. They love the you who didn't rock the boat. They may not love the you who demands reciprocity. The you who won't play small for their comfort. The you who values your inner alignment more than their approval. And here's the truth. Some people will walk away. Some will pull back quietly, disappearing without a conversation. Others will confront you, guilt you, or call you selfish. They will say you've changed, as if that's a crime. But here's what they don't understand. You didn't change into someone else. You changed back into yourself. Standing alone is not romantic. It's not the filtered version you see online with candles and tea and perfect journals. It's pacing the floor at midnight, wondering if you've made a mistake. It's sitting in your car after saying no, fighting the urge to take it back. It's hearing the silence of a phone that used to ring more often. And yet, it's in that silence where you begin to hear something else. Your own voice, clear and unwavering. The loneliness becomes a teacher. It shows you where you've been outsourcing your worth. It shows you which connections were built on mutual truth and which were built on your compliance. The people who stay, they stay because of who you are, not because of what you give them. They stay because they're not threatened by your boundaries. They stay because your freedom inspires their own. And the people who leave, let them, not in bitterness, but in blessing. Because their absence creates space for relationships that can hold the real you without asking you to shrink. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But privilege doesn't mean ease. It means responsibility, to live in a way that reflects your truth, even when it costs you company. There will be days when you ache for the old life, simply because it was familiar. There will be moments you envy those who seem unbothered, who never rocked the boat, who never had to rebuild their lives from the inside out. But here's what you must remember. Comfort without authenticity is a slow death. It doesn't happen in one blow. It happens in 1,000 tiny silences, 1,000 swallowed truths, 1,000 moments where you choose their approval over your own peace. When you stand alone, something else happens. The horizon opens. Your energy stops bleeding into maintaining roles that no longer fit. Your mind stops spinning on what do they think of me and starts asking, what do I think of me? Your days begin to fill with choices that are yours, not inherited, not imposed, not assumed. And slowly, the loneliness shifts. It becomes solitude. Solitude becomes sanctuary. And sanctuary becomes strength. Because the truth is, you can't walk into the life meant for you while holding the hand of everyone who loved the life that was killing you. Some hands must be let go so you can grasp your own. Standing alone is not the end of connection. It's the beginning of honest connection. It's where you meet others who have walked through their own fires and refuse to turn to ash. It's where you sit at tables where the conversation isn't about performing perfection, but about living truth. It's where "how are you" becomes a real question, not a polite script. And here's the final paradox. When you are willing to stand alone, you rarely have to. Because authenticity has its own gravity. It draws the right people to you. The ones who aren't afraid of your strength, who don't flinch at your honesty, who celebrate your no as much as your yes. But you have to be willing to go first, to walk through the quiet, to bear the weight of your own company. Because on the other side of that, there's a freedom no one can give you and no one can take away. The death of the old self. When you choose yourself, truly choose yourself, something inevitable happens. A part of you dies. It's not the death of your essence. It's the death of the self you built to survive. The self who learned exactly how to speak, smile, agree, and bend to keep the peace. The self who could predict what others needed before they asked. The self who lived for applause and feared silence. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. He called it individuation, the process of becoming whole. But wholeness isn't just about adding new parts. It's about letting the false parts fall away. And that is not gentle work. You will watch identities you've worn for years dissolve. Good girl, reliable one, peacemaker, the strong one, the one who's always there. These roles feel like skin, but they're costumes. And when you take them off, you'll feel naked, exposed in ways you've never known. At first, you'll grieve. You'll miss the comfort of being predictable. You'll miss the structure of being needed. You'll miss the easy belonging that comes from playing a role everyone understands. The grief will come in waves. A smell that reminds you of the you left behind. A song that takes you back to a version of yourself who didn't know better yet. A memory of a night when you felt safe because you hadn't yet questioned the cost. And then there will be the fear. Because without those old selves, who are you? If you're not the one who pleases, protects, or performs, what remains? It's a question that feels like standing in a room with no furniture, no lights, no door. Jung would tell you, stay there. Because emptiness is not the enemy, it's the womb. What feels like nothing is actually the space where something real can grow. But we rush to fill it with new labels, with new roles, with distractions that keep us from sitting in the raw, electric stillness of becoming. We want the new self to appear immediately so we can skip the discomfort of not knowing. Yet the void is necessary. It's the fire that burns away the identities that were never yours. It's the silence where you can finally hear your own pulse. It's the winter that makes spring possible. And in that stillness, something happens. You begin to notice the small, unfiltered truths that rise without your permission. You laugh at something stupid, not because it's cool, but because it's you. You say, I don't like that, without worrying how it lands. You decline an invitation without writing a 3-paragraph apology. You eat because you're hungry, not because the clock says it's time. These are the seedlings of the real you, fragile but alive. The people who knew the old you may be confused. Some will try to pull you back, not out of malice, but out of habit. They will say things like, you've changed. You're not yourself. This isn't like you. And they're right. It's not like the you they knew, but it's exactly like the you who's been waiting under all that performance. This is the moment where you must be ruthless with your own evolution. Protect it like you would protect a child. Say no to old patterns, even when they feel safe. Say yes to small experiments that feel alive, even when they scare you. You'll learn that death, in this sense, is not the end. It's the release of the weight that kept you crawling when you were meant to fly. And then, almost without noticing, you'll feel a shift. Your laugh will come easier. Your shoulders will drop. Your eyes will meet the mirror without flinching. You'll feel a strange, quiet loyalty to yourself, one that doesn't need to be proven to anyone. The old self will still whisper sometimes. She'll ask, are you sure we're safe? You can smile at her and say, yes, I've got us now, because you do. And that is the moment you realize the death of the old self is the birth of the soul-led life. The life you were always meant to live. When the dust settles, when the noise fades, when the people who needed you to stay small have drifted away, something astonishing happens. You begin to live, not exist, not perform, not survive. Live, Carl Jung said. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And when you have walked through the fire of choosing yourself, integrating your shadow, standing alone, and letting the old self die. You step into that privilege fully. Life feels different here. Colors are sharper. Silence is kinder. You wake up and realize there is nothing left to run from because you are no longer abandoning yourself. Your decisions are clean. You no longer choose based on who will approve. You choose based on what aligns. You no longer say yes out of fear, but out of desire. You no longer measure your worth by who stays, but by whether you stayed with yourself. There's a new kind of wealth in your life. Energy. You have it because you're no longer bleeding it into people-pleasing, endless explanations, and the maintenance of false roles. With that energy, you create. You build. You dream again. Not the dreams they gave you, but the ones that were buried under the rubble of who you thought you had to be. And the relationships you attract now, they are unrecognizable compared to before. There is no keeping score, no silent contracts, no shrinking to fit. They are built on mutual respect, shared truth, and the unspoken agreement that we are here because we want to be, not because we're afraid to leave. You realize you don't need a crowd to feel full. 2 honest connections can feel richer than 20 shallow ones. An afternoon alone in your own company can feel more nourishing than a weekend of 4 smiles. And perhaps the most profound change, you trust yourself with your own life. Not in a loud, overconfident way, in a quiet, steady way. You know you can walk away from what is wrong, even if you don't yet see what's next. You know you can sit in uncertainty without running back to the old cage. You know you will not betray yourself to be loved. From this place, fear no longer controls you. Yes, fear will still visit. It's human, but it's not the driver anymore. It's just a passenger you can nod to and keep moving. Jung would tell you this is the point where your inner life and outer life finally match, where the self you present to the world is the same self who sits with you in the quiet, where you're no longer living a double life between the mask and the mirror. And here's the secret. The high vibration you've been chasing, this is it. It's not a fleeting rush or a perfect morning routine. It's the steady hum of alignment. It's the unshakable calm that comes from living in integrity with yourself. It's the joy that doesn't depend on circumstances because it's rooted in truth. This doesn't mean life becomes painless. Loss will still come. Conflict will still arise. Uncertainty will still knock on your door. But now, you meet all of it with the unbreakable knowledge. I can trust myself to navigate whatever comes. And when the world sees you like this, steady, real, unapologetic, it will try to name it. Strong, confident, empowered. But you'll know it's none of those things exactly. It's simply you, the you who was there all along, waiting for you to come home. So, here is your invitation. Not tomorrow, not when it's convenient, not when they approve. Now, choose yourself, not in the half-hearted, self-care marketed way, but in the soul-deep way that changes your relationships, your work, your health, and your very sense of existence. Because the life you were always meant to live is not waiting somewhere out there. It's been here all along, under your feet, in your hands, in your chest. It was just waiting for you to be ready to claim it. And now you are.